Hey everybody, Captain Logan here again. It's time for the D-pad segment. I'm going to do this one all by myself today because I want to get a good close look at this thing. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the My Aracde Galaga machine. This is the tiny Galaga machine from My Aracde, and as you can see, it fits in the palm of my hand and functions very much like a traditional classic Galaga machine. It's really neat, and this retails for $25 right now. Walmart is where I purchased it, and this is a thing that I had my eyes on for a while, and honestly, I thought it might be too good to be true. I thought this might be a thing that would look really cool, be neat for my collection. I love Galaga. I would love a representation of Galaga somewhere in my office or somewhere in my house, and it might be a thing that would be worth picking up just to display somewhere because it looks neat. But at 25 bucks, I would love it, and that's a perfectly reasonable price if it works well and if it's fun to play. But at that price point, I would want to, actually be able to play it and it to be, usable and functional. The first thing you'll notice that's kind of odd about it is that it has a D-pad underneath the joystick, and apparently, and I haven't done this yet because I haven't thought of any good reason to, for myself anyway, you can actually pull the joystick off and play with just the D-pad. And it surprisingly functions really well. So let's turn it on and we'll take a look at it. The on button, it took me a couple minutes to figure this out, is actually where the coin slot would usually go in a big Galaga machine. And you'll notice as soon as you turn it on that it lights up like the coin slots usually would. It's really cool. There was some real thought and care put into this, I think. And as you can tell, looking at the display there, that is what Galaga looks like when you boot the arcade cabinet up, and just obviously waves of nostalgia for me. This is my favorite arcade game of all time. Every time I go to any arcade or a Dave & Buster's or any place like that, and there's a Galaga machine, I have to play at least one game. And I'm a fairly decent Galaga player. I've done a little bit of Galaga gameplay on the channel before, and at some point I'll do some more because I just did that on the Wii once with the Wii remote, and that's obviously not the best way to play Galaga. I tend to not really care to play Galaga on a console. I much prefer a joystick and as close to the arcade experience as possible. And believe it or not, as small as this is the closest to an arcade experience for Galaga that I have ever found without buying a cabinet and putting it somewhere in my house, which someday I would really like to do. And yes, I can get a multicade and I might do it that way, but I would love to own a classic 1981 Galaga machine that looks just like this one, except, of course, full scale. The reason this plays as well as it does is because the controls are pretty tight. You can hear that in the stick. It's not loose at all, and it's very easy to maneuver. And the fire button is exactly the same way. And I'll cut here in a second to a little bit of gameplay and show you guys what it looks like. This is going to sound really silly, but to me, it is, again, like an authentic arcade Galaga experience when I stand up and play it. And it plays fine on my lap, but, it kind of wobbles around when I'm playing it, and so when I'm firing missiles, because jostling the screen, they kind of look like they reverberate, back and forth, and it's more difficult to aim, and it just kind of messes with my eyes. So you want to get it as stationary as possible. So either sit it on a desk or even put it on top of a dresser and stand up to play, which I've done a little bit, and I have been having kind of my normal Galaga games with this. I get at least 100,000 every time I play. So the reason it doesn't move around if you put it on a good flat surface is because it's got this kind of grip traction material on the bottom, and that's a really nice feature. I'm glad it has that. That's not a given, and so it doesn't slide around when you're playing, and you do have to kind of hold it from on one side to another when you're playing, even if you're not holding it up in midair like this. So you just have to kind of hold it with a finger or two to keep it from wobbling. I tend to play kind of like this, and that might look uncomfortable, but it really does play just fine. And it's you know, because I don't need more than a finger or two to move the joystick, I'm able to hold it in place just fine and not have to worry about it. And I can play this longer than a regular Galaga arcade machine because I'm not using, because I'm not pressing a button that might be, you know, kind of finicky or sticking and have to press it so hard, and same thing with a stick. So anyway, my one gripe about this is sound effects, or I should say one kind of mistake in sound effects that I think probably has something to do with the sound chip. So let's go ahead and turn this on, or play a short game, and I'll let you just listen to it. So when you start it, you can hear it there. It starts up just like a regular arcade or Galaga game. It sounds like Galaga. It's authentic. The sound effects are all just as they should be. But can you hear that? Whenever you fire, there's a weird buzz. It goes bzz, 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 bzz. That's unfortunate. Obviously, you can play it with the sound off to combat that, but if you want, you know, authentic Galaga sounds, you do have to deal with that weird buzzing that happens whenever you play. Other than that, the port seems perfect. This is not modified in any way, and there's not any way to turn on rapid fire or do any modifications that I've seen with Galaga machines and that the original Galaga had. So you can't set it up to have any variations in levels or anything. For instance, when you get to when you get to level 10, it's always the version where there's no missiles. It's the classic, you know, exactly to spec original Galaga game. And there are the only option really with sound effects, or excuse me, with audio, is you can plug in a pair of headphones if you want to and listen to it. The buzzing is more irritating if you do that. And there are only a couple of audio levels, so there's kind of louder, not as loud, and not at all, and there's a plus and minus button on the back to adjust the volume. The other little quibble I have about the audio is that if you reset, because there is of course a start and a reset button, if you reset the game, it will go back to the default audio settings rather than sticking with whatever you had before, which is kind of unfortunate. So if you're wanting to play on that medium level of volume and you don't like how loud it is at the default, you have to every time turn the machine around and press the minus button, and I don't love that. But anyway, let's cut to a little bit of gameplay, and I'll just show you guys what this looks like. We'll have to kind of guerrilla style it. Obviously, there's no way to capture this footage, and if we captured it, it would just look like just, you know, footage of Galaga, what you would expect. So I'll show you guys kind of what it looks like to play this, if I can get a good angle at it. So there it is, the My Aracde Galaga tiny arcade cabinet. This retails right now at Walmart for $25. That's the only place I have found it in brick and mortar stores. It is a little bit more expensive online. I've seen it on Amazon for over $30, so your best bet is Walmart if you want to get your hands on this, and I definitely recommend this for hardcore Galaga players and people who just casually want to play this as well. And obviously it's really portable and you can take this with you on trips, and I highly recommend it. I think it's absolutely wonderful.